Hey guys, Jack Rose here. Welcome back. So in this video we're going to be talking about 1. Firearm safety, 2. School security, and things that we can do that actually have nothing to do with arming teachers. Of course, I'll probably also talk about arming teachers. And 3. Assault weapons, and the difference between an assault weapon and an assault rifle. And that has to do with a currently pending bill in the U.S. House of Representatives, HB 5087, the assault weapons ban of 2018. And I really hope it doesn't pass, because I am completely against it. And once again, back with the Second Amendment shirt and my right to bear arms. So if you've ever been to the range and you've shot your rifle enough that the trigger spring is actually broken in your rifle while you're at the range, go ahead and hit like. If you've ever been in a rifle or a carbine qualification and 5 shots into that qualification your trigger spring broke, but you still managed to qualify with your rifle or carbine behaving as a single shot bolt action, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and share this video. Of course, you can like, share, and subscribe even if you haven't ever had those things happen to you. So, we're going to go ahead and dive in. Rule number 1, treat every weapon as if it's loaded at all times. I've actually got a few different guns that I'm going to be showing in this video, but we're not going to be doing anything other than show and tell. Rule number 2, keep your finger off the trigger at all times until you've acquired your target and you are ready to shoot. Rule number 3, keep all weapons pointed in a generally safe direction at all times. And rule number 4, you are and will be held accountable for every round you fire. So make sure you have a clear awareness of your target's foreground and background before you press that trigger. Safety brief complete. Let's get into the meat of it. I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I can. The last video ran, I believe, over 15 minutes. And I keep saying 10. Maybe if I don't put a number on it, I'll actually be able to keep it short. So, first thing, school security. Okay, there's a lot of different things that school districts can do to secure their schools. One is in the architecture of the school itself, when it's designed, when it's originally built. Now, we've got a lot of schools in this country that are relatively old. My high school was built a long time before I first set foot in those hallways. And it presents some certain challenges when it comes to actually securing the facility itself because of the way it was originally designed. Now, back when it was originally built, school shootings weren't a thing. Nowadays, unfortunately, they're happening, and they're happening way more often than they did in the 1990s or in the 1980s. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and those reasons are not the guns, but we do need to look at ways that we can secure our students. The go-to argument is whether or not we should arm teachers, or whether or not we should have armed security on campus. Most schools have a resource officers, local law enforcement. Some school districts actually have their own police force, a detachment from local police. But if you got one guy policing how many thousands of square feet, look, in the event of a school shooter, that's one guy, right? The school shooter's already managed to get his weapon into the campus, and you've already got a problem. Instead of looking at that from a reactive point of view, why don't we look at that from a proactive point of view? Now, absolutely nothing that I'm about to say requires a government mandate. Okay, absolutely nothing that I'm about to say requires any kind of federal or state level regulation. Okay, but there are things we can do. The first thing that we can do is install metal detectors at entrances and exits and control entry and exit to and from the facility. Okay, now that didn't work out in Sandy Hook very well. The guy still managed to gain entry even though entry was controlled. Okay, and let's face it, somebody that's already made the decision to murder children let that sink in for a second, probably doesn't care that he's going to set off a metal detector when he walks through it with a gun. But if we add those extra layers of defense, you have a better chance of, if not stopping it completely, at least bringing down that body count, at least decreasing the casualty count as close to zero as we can get, because let's face it, that is the goal. Okay, Jack doesn't want innocent people getting killed by fucking crazy or evil bastards any more than their parents do. All right? And how many people honestly disagree with that sentiment? Let's think about it. Okay, let's not call names. Let's really stop and think about that for a second. So, controlled entry, maybe having metal detectors, that kind of thing. You can go a step further. Okay, you can even go a step further. You have to look at your lockdown procedures, and you have to look at your active shooter response procedures. Because if these guys manage to get into the building, then you are in a reactive posture. Okay, that's when you start looking at whether or not you have armed staff, whether it's security, whether it's law enforcement, whether you have teachers with CHLs who have been trained in concealed carry tactics and active shooter response. Okay, the district itself or the school itself, they should have their own policy. They should have their own program for active shooter response training for the teachers and the staff at the school. I hate to say that that's the world we live in, but that's the world we live in, and they need to have that so that, you know, everybody can be on the same page. And honestly, it's not a bad idea to bring in outside consultants, bring in tactical training companies, bring in security specialists who can actually look at those policies and look at those plans and tell you whether or not they're garbage. Because if they're garbage, you need to know about it before you find out the bad way. Okay? One thing that we can do, not just as, you know, schools, but if you're a parent, you got kids going to public schools, if you live in a specific district, one thing you can do is have a PTA drive for your school or for your district. There's a company called Barracuda. They make an intruder defense system. It's got a variety of different products that would work in a variety of different situations depending on how the school is built, depending on the actual design and architecture of the doors, the entries, the hallways. They've got products that can be applied to really lock that school down. Okay, now you can have one of these systems in every room. Okay, they've got a particular piece of equipment that will lock on to the auto closing door hinge that is on most classroom doors. Okay, it locks onto it, it locks it down, it keeps that door from being able to move, so you can apply that. You know what else you can use? A door stop. Okay, get a good, durable, heavyweight door stop. Have your kid carry it in their backpack, or have the teacher keep one in the desk, or keep it right next to the door. Okay, that can help keep the bad guy from getting entry into the room. Now, unfortunately, the most recent school shooting shoots a big hole in all of this. Okay, because he employed a very specific tactic, and it's actually been employed before also. This isn't new. He pulled the fire alarm. Okay, those teachers and those students in those rooms, the school resource officer doesn't necessarily know when that fire alarm is pulled, whether there's an actual fire or whether there's a school shooter who thought his way around the lockdown procedure. Okay, one way or another, they're about to find out. And that presents a very, very, very special problem that needs to be taken into account when you're developing these programs and you're making these risk assessments and you're trying to figure out ways to mitigate those risks. Because when that fire alarm gets pulled, if it's an actual fire, you don't want teachers and students locked into their classrooms or hiding in bathrooms or whatever the case may be, right? You don't want to go into lockdown if there's an actual fire. So you have to assume when the fire alarm goes off that the doors got to open and people have to get out of the building. Unfortunately, the bad guy knows this too. And You know, Jack has a rule about not giving pro tips to the bad guys, but that's not exactly information that isn't common at this point. Okay? And as much as it makes me sick to my stomach to even go there, that's the world we live in. Okay, some of these bastards are actually pretty smart, and one of them managed to figure this out. Another one managed to figure it out in the past. It's not new. Alright? So, unfortunately, best laid plans can still go sideways when the situation gets bad. I was going to use another phrase there, but I decided to at least try and keep this PG-13 as much as possible. For once. So, what do you do? Right? What do you do? Well, at that point, you have to make an assessment. Now, this is where Jack gets to arming teachers. Your teachers, your school staff, your resource officers, those are your first lines of defense. Those are your first responders. They are actually going to be there when everything goes down. Those are the people that are actually present. Not your SWAT team, not your local sheriff's office. Okay? The adults that are there, that are actually present, are the best chance of minimizing a casualty count. Okay? Whether they've got training in first aid, whether they've got training in the ability to apply a tourniquet, whether there's an actual first aid kit in the classroom. Look, I hate the fact that I even have to bring this up. I hate the fact that this is even a viable topic, something that is logical to discuss. Unfortunately, it is. Okay? Some of these gunshot victims may survive if they receive proper first aid in that short amount of time that they have when they're first injured. Okay? So that's something we need to look at. Maybe that needs to be a part of an active shooter response program. And look, some people can't deal with blood. Some people can't deal with injuries. I've known people that would literally faint at the sight of a paper cut. Okay? I've also known people that will fall out seeing their own blood, but can deal with somebody else's. Don't ask me how that works, but everybody's wired a little bit differently, okay? So, maybe not everybody in the school needs to be certified in CPR or needs to be, you know, medically trained. Maybe there are some people that just can't handle it. That's fine. They don't have to be. Just like there are some people that can't handle the mentality and the responsibility that goes along with carrying a firearm. Anybody that doesn't want to carry a gun, I don't want them carrying a gun. That's simple, okay? But if they have the mentality, they have the responsibility, they understand the weight of carrying that hardware and what it's for, we can work with that. We can work with that. We can, you know, have a school policy of you need to have this many hours of safety instruction in a given year. Maybe we have a reimbursement program. Maybe not. Maybe local instructors, NRA certified instructors or local training companies will offer discounted rates for teachers and school staff, maybe the janitor, right? To be able to take the kind of training that is required by their particular school. That's something that can be figured out. But at a certain point, we have to start looking at the whole picture. We can't focus on just one thing. Giving every teacher a gun isn't any better of an idea than saying none of them can have one to respond to an active shooter. Okay? If there's a teacher standing nearby with a loaded firearm and that guy starts shooting, that one teacher may have a better chance of stopping the event right then and there, stopping the threat right then and there before it gets any worse. Okay? And that's a whole lot better than zero chance at all. And if nobody's armed, it's zero. Alright? So that's Jack's take on that. Moving forward, I'm gonna be very, very brief on this because I don't really feel like there is a lot that needs to be said. So we're going to move forward to assault weapons. First, I want to identify the difference between an assault rifle and an assault weapon. First, an assault rifle is a rifle or a carbine. Okay, I don't have one to show you, so I can't do any show and tell with that. An assault weapon can be a rifle, a carbine, a pistol, a shotgun, as legally defined, especially under the current bill that I am opposing, which is HB 5087. An assault rifle, like I said, I don't have one, but I have one that's almost there, is a medium cartridge rifle or carbine that is capable of a automatic or burst fire mode, has more than safe and semi on the selector switch. That is the definition, okay? It's not word for word. I'm paraphrasing the legal definition. But without that third fire mode, without that fully automatic or burst fire mode, it is not an assault rifle. I've got safe and semi. Safe and semi. Doesn't go any further. There's no third mode here, okay? Any assault rifle that is currently in the hands of a U.S. civilian has to have a federal tax stamp, has a whole lot of paper trail that goes along with it, requires a very in-depth background check, and they're extremely expensive because they're very, very hard to come by, okay? So this is not an assault rifle. Matter of fact, this isn't even an AR-15. Talk about that in a second. AR doesn't stand for assault rifle, it stands for Armalite rifle. This is a Voltor Model VR carbine, okay? That lower receiver right there determines the make and model of this entire assembly. Everything else is just parts, all right? Now, under HB 5087, this firearm, my Scary Black Space Rifle, is considered an assault weapon. What is an assault weapon? Well, the term is a legal term. It was developed in the 1980s for politicians to ban scary-looking guns based on nonsense, based on cosmetic configurations more than anything else. Okay, this is stuff that is written by people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, and essentially it's an avenue to be able to remove firearms from the market. So when you tell me nobody's trying to take away guns, nobody's trying to ban guns, nobody's trying to make all the guns go away, the fact that a bill like HB 5087 exists, once you understand what the bill actually means, makes that argument complete bullshit, okay? There are people trying to make the vast majority of firearms that are on the market right now go away or be illegal for sale, transfer, purchase, and manufacture. This bill also bans 30-round magazines. Meat of the bill. It's the definition of the assault weapon. For a rifle or a carbine, it is any rifle or carbine that has the ability to accept a detachable magazine and one of any of these other features: a collapsible buttstock, a pistol grip, a foregrip, forearm, or barrel shroud. Barrel shroud is the term that they use in the bill. A forward grip, or a vertical forward grip, which I don't have because I don't use them and I don't think they're comfortable. A threaded barrel, and a muzzle device. There are other things on the list, okay? But I could remove any of those things from this weapon. I can take this off and just leave the buffer tube. I can take the pistol grip off and just hold the rifle by the buffer tube. Okay, I can take the forearm off and grip the weapon around the magazine well. This would go away with the barrel shroud. I can take the flash suppressor, which doesn't actually make the flash go away, it just redirects it so that if I have to shoot this thing in the dark, the muzzle flash doesn't blind me. Okay, during the day, it doesn't really make any kind of difference at all. Excuse me. I can take all of that off, and what I still have is a 5.56 carbine that is semi-automatic, is capable of accepting a detachable magazine. Okay, the magazine size doesn't matter. I can spend 6 hours standing in front of a mirror practicing magazine changes. If I got a 5-round magazine, I got to carry more. If I have a 10-round magazine, I have to carry more. Harrison Klebold, however you want to pronounce his name, executed the Columbine shooting during the 1994 to 2004 assault weapons ban, using banned weapons. They couldn't get their hands on 30-round magazines, so they carried a bunch of 10-round magazines. Let that sink in. Okay, doesn't take long to change out a magazine. All right, and if you want to hear testimony from somebody who was actually in an active shooter situation, you can look up the congressional testimonies regarding the Luby's shooting that occurred here in Texas years ago. The time for a magazine change is not enough time to tackle the bad guy unless he's just Freddy Fumblefingers. All right, just not going to happen. Okay, you don't have the time, and there's plenty of videos out there where law enforcement and security professionals, firearms professionals, have actually demonstrated this on video. You can go look them up. So I would still have a rifle fully capable of being used by a bad guy to inflict maximum damage. Okay, look, all the extras are nice. Okay, the pad on that buttstock, it's great, I love it. Okay, the vertical pistol grip, that's great, I love it, but none of it is actually necessary for the functioning of the weapon itself. None of it actually enhances the function of the weapon itself. Okay, you can still walk into a relatively close quarters situation with a weapon completely stripped down, bare bones, and the only thing that this gun would be able to do is accept that 10-round magazine and still inflict serious damage. Okay, it doesn't make the threat go away. That's here and here. All right, and no, at no point in any video ever are you going to see me destroying my rifle or any of my pistols. So now that we've talked a little bit about how the assault weapons ban applies to my rifle, we're going to talk about how it applies to modern semi-automatic pistols. I've got a few of them with me here today. I've got a Beretta 92. And I said in a previous video, we're going to talk about how this is actually an assault weapon. Okay, nothing in the chamber, no magazine in the gun. Weapon is clear and safe. We've got a Glock 19. Okay, this is Jack's Glock 19. Once again, nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magazine well. This weapon is clear and safe. And last but not least, we have my fancy Belgian Glock, FNS 40. Okay, nothing in the chamber, no magazine in the gun. This weapon is also clear and safe. All right, all three of those pistols would be considered under HB 5087 as assault weapons. All three of them. Why? Because all three of them, even this one, okay, have the ability to accept a detachable magazine, and they have the ability to accept, think about the wording here, the ability to accept a threaded barrel. That wording in the bill essentially makes every single semi-automatic handgun on the market that can accept a detachable magazine and has the ability for the barrel to be removed from the gun as a part of its design into an assault weapon. Okay? Because I can get a threaded barrel for this firearm. I can get, what's my camera there? I can get a threaded barrel for this firearm. I can get a threaded barrel for this firearm. All three of these firearms, when you break them down to clean them, the barrel can be removed from the gun. I can swap it out with an aftermarket threaded barrel for one of a number of uses. Maybe I'm going to shoot a competition and I'm in a particular area of that competition where the actual accessories on my gun aren't tightly regulated, so I can put excuse me, trying not to cough. I can put a compensator on the end of my barrel to help me control muzzle rise. Okay, I don't own one, I don't need one for that purpose. I may want a threaded barrel to be able to attach a suppressor or a silencer to the end of my barrel for home defense purposes, right? My wife and my kid don't deserve to immediately have irreparable hearing loss in the event that somebody breaks into our house intending to harm me or my family, and I have to use one of my firearms to defend my household. Okay, so having a threaded barrel, being able to attach a suppressor to my firearm, might actually be something that I would do as a responsible homeowner who actually cares about the hearing of my wife and my daughter. Okay, not to mention my own. But at the end of the day, the fact that all three of these guns can accept, think about that, a threaded barrel, makes them subject to regulation under this law. And that regulation is no sale, no transfer, no purchase, no manufacture. There's the vast majority of semi-automatic handguns in the world, let alone in the United States. Think about that for a minute. And while you're thinking about that, Jack's going to go ahead and sign off. This video is almost 30 minutes long, so I'm going to go ahead and close it out. As I've said before, once again, with attribution to Bill and Ted and their excellent adventure, be excellent to each other. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Or if it's not the weekend when you watch this, just have a great day.